welcome everybody once again. It's the GameFront podcast. I'm your host, managing editor Ron Whitaker, and we're on a skeleton crew today because joining me is senior editor Phil Hornshaw.
Hey, hey.
And video producer Mitchell Saltzman.
Hey, hey, hey.
We are without Janelle and James this week due to other commitments, so we're going to attempt to make up for their boisterous, hilarious presence by being our normal, boring selves. It's been a...
I'm not boring.
Well, that's true.
I'm not boring either.
But I'm talking about when we have James and Janelle here, we seem boring.
True. Robin Williams would look boring in comparison to James and Janelle.
This is true. Robin Williams looks boring when he's on screen by himself. It's okay.
Oh, hey.
Oh.
Someone doesn't like Batch Adams. Or,
Someone's not a fan of Mrs. Doubtfire.
What? Come on. Who's not a fan of Mrs. Doubtfire?
So today, just as we were about to start recording our podcast, big news. Apparently, John Carmack has been accused of taking intellectual property from ZeniMax when he went over to Oculus.
Dun, dun, dun.
Whoops.
I mean, it's John Carmack, man.
Yeah.
I mean,
the whole situation is getting interesting.
It is.
There's definitely an angle to which you can look at this from the standpoint of Facebook flashed $400 million and $1.6 billion in stock, and ZeniMax was like, "Whoa, wait a sec."
Yeah.
So, because to be fair, Carmack was working with Oculus while he was working at id. They were together, and ZeniMax presumably, or at least id and at least Bethesda seemed like they were in pretty tight with Palmer Luckey and the Oculus folks. So then all of a sudden Carmack cuts loose, and what was a promising startup suddenly is a $2 billion company getting snapped up by Facebook, and ZeniMax is probably going, "Oh, what? You just left us in the fucking dust here." So,
I mean, there's a lot. I'm sure there's a lot going on behind the scenes here that we don't know.
Right.
But according to what Bethesda told us, they have a statement in writing from Palmer Luckey acknowledging their legal ownership of the property they're talking about. I mean,
okay, so we should explain real quick what we're talking about. So Carmack was working on Oculus software, or technology, hardware, whatever, while he was still at id, and as an employee for ZeniMax. He was really into it. I mean, he was even talking about it back at QuakeCon, I think, in 2012.
Yeah,
that was his keynote. It was like, hey, guess what? Oculus is cool. That was the whole keynote. So he was working on it there while he was an employee. Well, the thing about, working for a corporation like that is the stuff you produce while you're an employee that's in the vein of what you do as an employee is supposed to belong to the corporation. That's kind of in the contract. When I write a story for GameFront, GameFront owns it. Right? Same thing for John Carmack when he writes code, when he worked for id. So ZeniMax's claim is that the stuff that John produced while he was a ZeniMax employee should belong to ZeniMax, and he just kind of supposedly, according to their accusation, absconded with it when he went to Oculus. And now suddenly they're a $2 billion company, and that was made out of technology that Carmack produced. They're claiming that Carmack basically took Oculus from being like a garage startup to being a $2 billion company with the tech that he wrote while he worked at ZeniMax. And so it's going to be a licensing fight, almost definitely, although it might not ever make it to the courts. But anyway, that's where things stand right now. Right now it's just, accusations and apparently letters from lawyers and stuff like that, according to the reports from the Wall Street Journal and, the Wall Street Journal mostly.
Well, it's interesting to me, having read the statements from both sides, if ZeniMax really has a written statement from Palmer Luckey acknowledging they own the intellectual property, I mean, game, set, match. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's over.
Well, what it's going to be, I would imagine, is rather than going to court over it, they're probably going to jostle a little bit and then come to a settlement.
Of course,
where they figure it out between themselves. But
The only thing I'll say is that, obviously the Facebook deal hasn't gone through yet.
Right.
It's still in the works. But, I mean, Facebook has a big chunk of interest here.
Yeah, absolutely. And no, we're not. It's not clear whether Facebook and Zuckerberg were aware necessarily of this whole situation before it happened.
Right.
Like this may well have blindsided Facebook as well. We're not sure. So
well, and if you
that'd be a whole other caveat.
Once again, this is a one-sided statement. But if you read through ZeniMax's statement, they even say that the two of them, they had tried to reach an agreement with Oculus where they'd get compensated with an equity ownership in the company, but they never resolved it. So, I mean, it's interesting to me because Oculus straight up said no. It's unfortunate when there's this type of transaction, people come out of the woodwork with ridiculous and absurd claims. So, and Carmack tweeted something saying that no work he has ever done has been patented. I'm not sure about that, but he says
that necessarily matters.
Or that it matters. He says ZeniMax owns the code that I wrote, but they don't own VR. And I don't think that they're claiming to own VR. Like, I think that's kind of a meaningless tweet, but
yeah.
Anyway, it could be interesting though because if it does kind of turn nasty, if it turns nasty, I mean, it's not like Facebook doesn't have the money to fight it.
Yeah, that's true.
Assuming that Facebook is the one that will, that Facebook is going to throw down on it. Facebook may investigate it and say, y'all need to work this out. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So I don't know. It's a weird situation. So I don't know how it's going to turn out. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see. I don't know. I mean, it's very odd. So, from John Carmack, intellectual property thief.
Alleged intellectual property thief. Come on. He hasn't been convicted.
That's journalism 101.
Yeah. It could have been sarcastic. I don't know.
We're not sure. We'll have to run back the tape.
Yeah, we'll have to run back the tape. We'll check with the court reporter. There was a little game that came out this week, Mitch. One of Mitch's favorite games.
Don't say it.
Daylight.
Don't even.
I said it.
Said it.
For those of you that have been longtime listeners, you know that Phil Hornshaw is sort of the horror guru around here, and he's been playing Daylight a fair bit. So, what about it, Phil? How did it turn out?
It's good. Jumping around the internet looking
asterisk,
yeah, very, jumping around the internet, you'll find a lot of reviews that go all over the place. The spectrum on this game is down in the 30s. I've seen all the way up to like 80s, 90s. I personally gave it a 75. The thing about Daylight is if it looks to accomplish, if you judge a horror game based on what it accomplishes in the player, in that if it scares you, then it's a successful horror game. It is. There are a lot of issues with that, however, because Daylight can get a little dull as far as gameplay is concerned. I mean, each level of the game is a maze. In each maze, you run around picking up notes. When you pick up enough notes, you have to get to a special room where you get another object. Once you have that object, you're not able to use any of the special glow sticks that you can use to like light up where you can find items, or any of the flares which can protect you from the ghosts. And then, so once you have the special object, you have to run to another location, which is the door out of that level, right? So as you pick up more of these things, the ghosts come after you more and more, and they're kind of like Slenderman-ish. If you stare at them too long, or if they get too close to you, you get killed by them. But anyway, the gameplay is basically search for things until you get enough of them, and then run. And you can't really fight much. So it can get tedious, especially if you have it set to a low difficulty. I feel like difficulty is really important to this. So if you like set up the difficulty higher, the ghosts come at you more frequently, you get a lot more freaked out, you're under a lot more pressure as you're searching these mazes. Because like in my playthrough, I didn't want to collect all the notes before I knew where I had to take them and where I was going to get out, right? And
right.
It's a maze, so you got to like figure those things out ahead of time. And spending that time can get a little tedious. The story itself is not super well delivered. So if you're not engaged in the way the game is scaring you, and it's all jump scares, let's be clear on that. Like it's all atmosphere, it's dark, and then there's just a lot of weird sounds, and then sometimes your phone will flicker, and that indicates that the ghost is about to attack you, and then you'll turn around and it'll be like right behind you. It's all like that. If you're into that, it's great. You'll have a good time. If you're not into that, it can be boring. And especially if you don't have the difficulty high enough that the scares are coming fast enough to like keep you into it. So I can definitely understand why people are all over the spectrum with it. I had a pretty good time with it, but I feel like I was a little more open maybe to what it had going on. I was freaked out the entire time, which was frustrating, but also fun.
It was quite fun watching you play on the stream. I gotta
Oh,
say.
yeah?
And
Well, that's good.
that's the other thing about Daylight. It's a very cool experiment, I think, in terms of integrating with Twitch, because it has. And I don't know, is this still a secret list of commands? Like, has it been posted yet anywhere?
People say they found them. I haven't found them, but I haven't looked in a day or two.
Yeah.
But I was searching for them. I couldn't find them.
So yeah, they have a set of commands that if someone inputs a command in the Twitch chat, it will trigger some sort of event in the game. So, for example, the one that I know for sure works because I did it while I was watching Phil play and it scared the shit out of him was you type in "scream" in the chat and then you wait a couple seconds for the stream to catch up, and in the game you'll hear a shrill, out of nowhere scream. Yeah. And it's pretty nice to be the person who typed in the command and see like, ha, I scared Phil.
Well, I find it amusing that if you search for Daylight Twitch commands on Google, one of the first things that comes up is "Help us terrorize Mitch in Daylight on Twitch TV."
Which we didn't actually get to do.
Which we didn't actually get to do.
Unfortunately, my computer, for whatever reason, doesn't run very well with Daylight. I don't know if it's a problem. It's obviously a problem with my computer, but I'm also not sure if it's also a problem with Daylight's, programming or something, because other games that look a lot nicer than Daylight run much better.
Yeah, it is, what is it, Unreal 4?
I think it's Unreal 4.
Yeah, so maybe that has something to do with it. I mean, anyway, I don't know. I also had problems with it, but I have weird frame rate issues with a lot of games for some reason. I can't figure it out because I don't know what I'm doing as far as tech is concerned. So, like, some games run fine. Other games that have no reason to not run fine don't run fine. And everything should be, like, well in the hands of my very capable graphics card because I spent the extra money for a good one. And I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing wrong, but I got to figure it out one day.
Well, I know that people enjoy watching Phil play horror games because it's very educational, and they enjoy watching Mitch play horror games because he wets himself. But here's the thing. Daylight's procedurally generated. Yeah. So, I mean, how long did it take you to get through the game?
Me? It took a couple hours, 3 hours. I don't know. I mean, I spent a fair amount of time when I could handle it looking around for extra crap. Picking up all the stuff I know was going on. But, I don't know. Yeah, it doesn't take too long, honestly. It's a pretty quick game.
I mean, I think
3 hours is probably the outside.
What I'm driving at is it procedurally generated enough that when you go back and play it, it's substantially different?
Well, no. Well, here's the thing of it. Okay, so one, what's procedurally generated about it is the level layouts when you're in the maze part, not the in-between sections where you're, like, learning about things. And the story bits that you get from the notes that you find, because there are there are like 120 notes throughout the game, right? You don't need that many to advance, and you only need to get a certain number of notes to move forward in certain places. So it's easy to miss things. What's in each of the notes, except for the places where you're supposed to be finding certain things at certain times, is also procedural. So it's possible that you can get through the game and not find out the entire story or not get other little details that you might want to hear. So there's that. That's a reason to replay it. The only other reason to replay it is if you like being scared, or I think really if you're streaming. I think that the primary audience for this game is people who want to put it on the internet, which is cool in a way, but I don't know that there's a super big draw, especially long term, for players who are not really that interested in it. as far as streaming.
So ultimately, do you think that the procedural generation is it a positive or a negative for the game?
It sort of depends, actually. It's cool in a way because it does sort of put you on your toes, and it makes the game. If you do want to play the game again, you definitely have a good, decent enough experience to go back and do it again. It's it's the same level of difficult every time. And it doesn't make it easier because if you knew where you were going all the time, it would ruin the game basically.
Right.
The opposite effect of that is that procedurally putting rooms together means that a lot of rooms are recycled, and especially like the stuff they have in them, the way they're laid out. When we're talking about like offices with file cabinets flipped over in the exact same way. There's a room in the hospital part. You get into this really creepy nursery that's all full of baby cribs, and they're all like scattered weirdly, like somebody crashed all through them. The first time I played through with Phil Owen for our Phil and Philverse Horror, our video series, we found that room, and then we found that room again in the next, like the very next room we came to, and it was like, oh, that kind of ruins it. But
that's not good.
The next time I played it through myself, when I found a room like that, it procedurally generated a weird a baby mobile came alive and made noise and like freaked out. It was like a poltergeist event, and those are randomized too, right? Like sometimes things fly across the room or whatever. That happened as well. And so with that element of it, even the things that you're kind of used to, you're not really used to because you walk in and it freaks you out. So I don't know. It kind of goes both ways. It's nice that the maze is hard to navigate. It's always different and it always looks the same, which makes it tough to get around, and that adds a lot to your experience because, fully like 1/4 of your time in each of these mazes is picking up that special item that opens the door and then just sprinting to the door, right? So and the fact that you can get turned around and kind of lost makes it a lot more harrowing. But it also sort of makes it irritating to figure out where you're going or whether or not you've been in a place and found the things that you have to find, especially when you're hunting little items. That can get sort of irritating. It has ups and downs.
Well, let me ask you this question. You mentioned a minute ago that you felt like it was really targeted at the Twitch experience, the whole game.
Yeah.
So,
well, I think that's when it's at its best. It's probably during a stream.
Do you think that was like that was their intention? Is let's make a game that streams really good on Twitch?
Well, in a way, probably. I haven't actually talked to anybody about this.
Right.
I wish that I had because it would be a very interesting conversation. What we've learned about horror games, especially first-person horror games, in the last 2 years is that they stream really well regardless, right? I mean, you've got a huge crop of them from Amnesia to Paranormal to Slenderman. All these games really, really are fun to watch. And so it wasn't really, I imagine, all that hard for Daylight to be a good streaming game. It would have been a good streaming game regardless. But it seems like the devs were aware of the fact that they had a chance to do something a little different and maybe amp it up to a different level that we haven't previously seen with the Twitch commands and the procedural generation, that sort of thing, to make it a longer running streaming game. But I think in general, a lot of these horror games have really kind of found a niche in being good at streaming and not necessarily great long-term single-player games.
Well, the reason
I was just going to say, it's kind of amazing, like, in this day and age, all you really have to do is just do a first-person horror game, and as long as, you get seen by PewDiePie, you're going to have an audience of about, 4 million people watching your videos.
Yeah.
For nothing. Free advertising. 4 million people. It's crazy.
It's a very different environment.
That's a cool thing. I mean, that's been very, very good for indie teams, one-man teams. I mean, Parsec Productions is a company, quote-unquote a company. It's one dude. It's the guy who created the original Slender, and that became Slender the 8 Pages. That's all the same idea. It's just, you've got a maze-like area and a thing hunting you, and you've got to pick stuff up. So, we've seen a ton of games like this, and it's nice that when they're well put together, they're getting exposure, even if they are sort of all the same. Daylight is pretty much the same as all the other ones, but it does do some things really well, and it deserves to be, I think, patted on the back for being solid in those respects. It's a scary game. I was frightened by it. Like that's fun, I think. And in as much as that is concerned, it's cool that it's getting exposure for that. I think it deserves to be getting exposure for that. Maybe the other things about it could be better, but I like it.
Well, I guess from what I was going with this is, do you think that's something we'll see more of? With it's getting easier and easier for small developers, even single-person creators, to make games and get them in front of people. Like Mitch said, you just have to get it to the right YouTube streamer, and you've got an immediate enormous audience. So do you think that's something we'll see, is games that are targeted at that sort of an experience being played and sort of viewed as almost as a vicarious experience?
Go ahead.
I think it's already happening. I don't know if have you guys heard of the Kickstarter for the game that's entirely based off of Twitch commands?
No.
There was a Kickstarter for, I forgot what it's called. But basically it's like a 2D platformer adventure game, and it basically it puts out a prompt for the Twitch audience to say, like, for example, what's in this treasure chest, and you can say like a sword, a bow, blah 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 blah, and the person playing will open the chest and it'll take out whatever the Twitch audience votes on being in that chest. And it was a Kickstarter, and it was almost at the point of being funded. And I think in the last day, Twitch decided to fund the rest of the development for it.
Nice. That's cool. Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think that we're very much already there. And if people, lots of developers I think have realized that this is a big deal, and they're starting to acknowledge it and actually make games for it. Now, here's the thing about that, right? Say you have the game Mitchell was just talking about, it's a game purely about Twitch commands. What's the experience like when you're not on Twitch? What's the experience like if you have no Twitch followers? Like, not everybody can be a big deal broadcasting to make a game like that worthwhile, right? And I think the fundamental issue with a game like Daylight is that its biggest audience are going to be people who want to stream. And that doesn't necessarily mean that when they do stream that other people are going to go, oh man, I want to own that game. That watching a game being played doesn't necessarily translate into I want to buy that game myself, right? So it's going to be, I think, a very interesting little corner of the market if you start especially making games that are going to attract Twitch streamers, because that doesn't necessarily make for a good game. It just makes for a visible game, or a game that's good to scream at while people watch you on your webcam, And I think we're getting that way with some horror games, to be perfectly honest. The way that there are so many horror games that are very similar to every other horror game, especially like Daylight is a good example. There are a whole mess of others like Huntsman and the Slender Game. Like they're all very much similar to one another. And that means that the market is getting crowded, and just because a lot of people are watching them doesn't mean a lot of people are going to buy them. And I think we're just going to get to a point, like anything, where, players might enjoy watching those games being played by PewDiePie or whoever, by Mitchell, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to want to buy them, especially if they all look the same. Then the real draw is the person playing it, not the game being played, right? So
right. Right. Yeah, I think you're right on all accounts, Phil. One of the things that I like about the advent of Twitch is I think it makes certain genres more appealing to create. Like, for example, roguelikes. Like, roguelikes are perfect for streaming. Games like Splunky, which I guess is not... I don't know. I don't want people to jump on my back like, Splunky isn't a roguelike, it's a roguelite, or blah, 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 blah. I'm not totally clear on what exactly constitutes a roguelike. But I know that games like Splunky with, randomly generated levels where it's a new experience every time you watch it. Games like that do play really well on Twitch, and they're a lot of fun to watch. And I really like the fact that Twitch offers an incentive for developers to make that style of game.
Right.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting. I'm looking at the Kickstarter for this Choice Chamber game Mitch was talking about. And it says it's designed to be played while being streamed live on Twitch, but it has an offline mode.
Right.
Where all the choices that the Twitch stream would normally make, the game makes for them.
Yeah, it's like randomized, I believe.
So, yeah, it reminds me a little bit of you guys remember when Left 4 Dead came out and they had the AI director, and it was such a big, a big advancement in the way that the AI behaved because it randomized things for them. It sort of looks like it's going to work that way. It's even talking about, down the road adding more ways for users to interact, like using chat bubbles to build a bridge, right?
Right.
So it's kind of interesting. So
I definitely think it's cool. Like Mitchell said, it's very cool that it's attracting people. I think you're gonna get to that sort of median area. Everything's gonna level off where you're gonna have crappy games that just look to exploit it and don't do all that well, and then you'll have really cool games that do it in a very exciting way, and then you'll have games in the middle that are fun to watch, and sometimes they get sales, and like anything, it's just gonna equalize. But it is opening a different aspect for
it's a whole new
community
genre.
play. Yeah, exactly. And community play is cool. And Twitch Plays Pokemon was crazy
ridiculous.
Interesting. Yeah, and people were really into it. And that's it's just another cool innovation. And I think it's great that Twitch is becoming more than just an opportunity to watch somebody play a game, but to actually play games in a different way. That's very cool.
I'm still not convinced that Twitch will ever reach a higher purpose than watching James Heaney fail miserably. But that's just.
But if you could help him fail, or if you could help him not fail,
well,
both of those things are kind of.
Yeah, that would be cool. Well, the other game we kind of got off tangent there. That was good.
Sorry.
The other game that came out this week that we did a review on and sort of has been all over the place is Child of Light.
Yep.
Yeah, Phil's played that. I'm gonna
be the only person talking in this whole goddamn podcast.
Yep.
I can offer some insight.
Well,
I think the interesting thing about Child of Light, and I think Phil, you brought this up to me, was a little Twitter drama that happened between Robert Boyd and Arthur Guys from the Polygon Review because of the difficulty aspect of it. I think Boyd made a review of Arthur's review of Child of Light, and he was very critical that Arthur was complaining about aspects of the game that lacked in depth, and I think Boyd made the claim, well, the reason why you didn't experience the depth of the game was because you played it on the normal difficulty level, and a lot of the difficulty in the game comes from when you play it on hard, and you're kind of forced to find the depth in the game.
Right.
And I was wondering what you thought on that, Phil.
Oh, I completely agree, and this is actually something I've been thinking about a lot lately. This idea of, Geese's point was that he was playing it on normal difficulty, quote-unquote normal difficulty, which is the default setting of the game, which is normal, and it's what it's called. So, and that brings up a question to me is that, what's the experience the developers intend you to have, right? Especially as a reviewer. Okay, so if you play a game on easy, and then you're like, this game is too easy, that's your fault, right? But at the same time, how do you mind read what the game should be, or do you, just play it in the best way that you enjoy the most, and then go from there? It's I think an interesting question, especially as we're getting into this idea of games as storytelling engines, games as art, and you're talking about the author's intent of what they created, and then what you bring to it. I think that's totally interesting. I totally think it's I totally think that playing the game and not having it set to a difficulty good enough to keep you engaged in Child of Light is a disservice to Child of Light, because it's definitely a lot deeper than I think that review gave it credit for. And I had a hard time with it, but I went out of my way to fight the battles because I knew I was going to need to be strong for other battles. I'd played a preview and I'd seen that happen. You can get into trouble in Child of Light if you don't play well. because it can get tough. And so yeah, I totally disagree with that idea. I think that mechanically the game is really good. Mechanically, the depth of the game, the thing that makes it enjoyable is the mechanics and the gameplay. Well, it's the story that it kind of falls down on for me.
Yeah, I mean, I've only played an hour of it so far, so I can't really speak to how the game eventually becomes. But I found myself very quickly annoyed with the rhyming style of the game, and it felt forced, and it didn't feel very clever at all. But I did really enjoy the building blocks of the combat system of what I've seen so far. It seems to kind of blend, Paper Mario with like Grandia or something like that. And I really love the aspect of being able to cancel your enemy out of their attack. It's something that I love from Grandia, and I like seeing it in other games as well.
Yeah, I had quite a good time, and you'll enjoy it as you get more characters in your party. Mitchell, you'll find players or characters like there's a healer who's also kind of a bruiser. She's pretty tough. Then you'll get a spellcaster. You'll get eventually you'll get a big tank guy. You'll get another caster. You'll get a caster that does status effects. And controlling like the speed of the battle and the speed or slowness of your enemies and your allies gets to be pretty important. And so, like, as you get more characters in and, like, switching in and out of party members, I found that, like, you can definitely play the game with, like, your only two characters and never really giving a crap about the deeper depth of the game. But if you challenge yourself or allow the game to challenge you, then you can really work those systems to be like, okay, now we're going to flip this guy in and cast fire spell, and then we're going to flip him out and cast a slow spell, and it gets intense. And especially if you mismanage the speed in your battle, like it can go to hell in a hurry. Like things get bad, especially in the boss fights, where it's like instead of you canceling their attacks, they're canceling your attacks, and when that happens, you get boned pretty fast. So
not good.
Yeah, it can go really badly. So I don't know.
Yeah,
I had a good time with it.
And I don't mean to change the subject again, but this whole conversation is something that I actually feel also applies to action games, which they're my favorite genre of game. But oftentimes I'll look at a review for something like a Devil May Cry game or whatever, and I see in the review that people are complaining that you can just do the same combo over and over again if you really wanted to get through the game, and I'm like, but why would you do that? There are so many other things that you can do that make the combat so exciting. Why would you just, intentionally play a game in a boring way when there are so many other options for you? And yeah, I don't know. It's something that when I read reviews of games like that, it bothers me a little.
Yeah, I can understand that. I mean, is that a question of AI though? Is where the game should stop you from being able to exploit it, I guess. I don't know. I mean, it's
true,
an interesting
but it's also an aspect of the difficulty level. Like if
right, exactly.
I feel like most of those games you can change the difficulty like on the fly, or at least from level to level. So if you feel like you're bored with combat and it's making you just go the same combos over and over again to get through it, bump up the difficulty. Now, if it's a problem of the difficulty on normal being too easy and the difficulty on hard being too hard, well, then that's a problem. That's
right.
That's on the fault of that's the fault of the developer. God, I can't speak. I'm sorry. But yeah,
I mean, I completely agree with you. I think that there's got to be, some level to which you seek out the best experience of the game if you're not enjoying it because of difficulty. I mean, that's the easiest thing to change usually. So, I mean, it's different when they're like, oh, replay half the freaking game on a different difficulty. And I'm like, all right, well, then no, I'm not doing that.
Well, I think it makes an interesting discussion. It really does. I mean, because not just from a standpoint of what's the game play like, but like you said, it's hard to mind read a developer and know what they intended. It's hard. I mean, what do you do when you're reviewing a game? Do you play it on easy so you can get through it as fast as possible?
Which is sometimes a concern when you've got an embargo breathing down your neck. And You know?
Yep.
And the developer or the publisher hasn't sent you a freaking review copy until the day before it gets released.
Yeah.
Nobody's
a little angry. Sorry.
Nobody's bitter. It's fine. But seriously, like I think most of the time you would think, well, I'm going to play it on normal because that's the setting that is the default. Everybody's going to play it on, so that's the one I want to review. And then, to have a developer come back and say, well, that's not the experience we intended. Well, why did you call it normal then? I don't know. It's just a weird discussion. I think game difficulty is always an interesting discussion. So
well, I mean, is that just like, does the situation change when you change the name of the difficulty?
That's
if you don't call it normal.
That's what Robert Boyd was saying. He said that maybe the discussion needs to be how developers can properly describe their difficulty levels so that it's not just normal, easy, and hard. Like, I don't know exactly what he said, but that was kind of the point he was making.
It might be interesting to see some attention given to, testing you and assigning a difficulty to your skill level also. I mean, it's interesting when games are like, if you've played a game in this genre before, pick this difficulty. If you are a hardcore fan of this, pick this difficulty. Like, that's helpful.
Yeah.
And it might be interesting. I mean, this is a development issue with tech involved and money and so on and so forth. But it would be cool to play, you play a level and then it decides what difficulty you have. I'm pretty sure I've played games like that, but
you have. I'm trying to think what it is right now.
Examples are escaping me right now, yeah. But, to give you the right experience for your capabilities. I mean, that's a really difficult thing to do, but maybe that's where things need to start moving.
It's really driving me crazy because I can't remember what game that was. It was a
I know,
shooter,
right?
And you played like a training section, and it was like, oh, you did this. We recommend this skill level.
Well, Call of Duty does that, actually.
Does it?
They used to.
You might be right.
Yeah, I think you are.
Yeah, you run through the damn,
the training
courses.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're right. I forgot all about that. Modern Warfare 2 does that.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, doesn't it? Or maybe
I'm pretty sure
Modern
Modern Warfare 3 did that too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the airplane hangar. I remember that.
Our bad. Should have known that.
Yeah, that was. Well, hey.
I knew it. Here comes the segue. Ron was waiting for it.
I've been waiting for that one all day. So again, today's been a busy day, and right after we got the John Carmack news, and we were still trying to process that, it turns out there's going to be a Call of Duty announcement on Sunday. Now, I know this is going to catch you guys off guard, but I'm going to go ahead and predict it right now. Activision's going to release another Call of Duty game this year.
Get the fuck out of here.
I am serious.
What? No.
And it's going to be the first Tuesday in November.
Oh, shit. Wow, that's like psychic powers.
Yeah,
dude.
you should write that shit up. That is some high-end rumor mongering.
Yeah.
It's interesting, though. I mean, this is going to be an interesting year for Call of Duty. Because you've got a new developer taking the Call of Duty sort of, mantle this year with Sledgehammer.
Yeah, that's an interesting development.
There's a couple, and it makes a couple of interesting developments. Number one is it's Sledgehammer making a Call of Duty game, first Call of Duty game that was an Infinity Ward or Treyarch. And secondly, it means that the longtime Call of Duty developers suddenly have an extra year to work on their games now.
Right.
So you have to wonder what that's going to do to Call of Duty as a whole. So, I don't know. I mean, what do you guys think? I mean, is it going to be awesome? Is it going to be the same old Call of Duty? What do you think? I mean,
well,
I don't know. It's too early to call.
That's true. That's definitely true. It's certainly positive that they have a third company in the rotation. If you're going to do yearly installments, which we all know I'm not a big fan of as it is, at least you're giving the development companies 3 years to work on the game. That's great. And I think that's Activision responding to the fact that Call of Duty is peaking or has been.
Peaked.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. The Black Ops series is pretty interesting still.
Yeah.
But anyway, the point is that rather than Guitar Hero it, I think they're recognizing that they need to diversify a little bit, offer different experiences, keep this brand viable by making by giving developers time to actually work on good games rather than smash them into a 18-month whatever development cycle is not going to work for much longer. So I think they realize that. Plus, Sledgehammer has been working on different aspects of Call of Duty games for quite a while now. It's not like they're a newcomer to the situation.
This is their first game that they're doing sort of with their name on it.
Right.
Unless they haven't been involved.
So that all I think is good. I mean, as long as we're going to be continuing to get Call of Duty games, the best case scenario under the current circumstances, I think, is 3 years development. That's great. I like that.
Yeah, that is good news. I totally agree. I mean, I feel like I'm with you. I don't want annualized games, but if this is going to be I still think this is going to be like a really interesting year for Call of Duty, and not just because it's Sledgehammer doing it, but because this is also the Activision said, quote unquote, they were going to, I think they said prioritize next gen consoles.
Good.
And hopefully that means they're going to get a new engine, for the love of God. I mean, I've been covering that engine since I got into this business in like 2004. It's tweaked and improved, but it's never been changed. And I'd like to see a new Call of Duty engine. And if the screenshots they were showing off, or the screenshot that they were showing off, is any indication, it looks like maybe they did. So I don't know, but I'm interested to find out.
I'd like to see them, pushing some new tech and being excited about it. That's not, fish move out of the way when you swim toward them, and
Fish AI.
Incredible dog rendering and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But, the hands on the guns look cool, I guess. That's cool.
We rendered every aspect of the dog's fur realistically.
Yeah. Well, and they had that cool bump map thing that made rocks look like rocks. Like, I guess that's cool, I suppose. The rocks, they look like rocks.
Back of the box quote.
Rocks
look like rocks.
Yeah, I mean, like, for real, though.
Snozberries taste like snozberries.
That was the biggest thing about Ghost to me, was not the dog so much as the fact that the rocks look like rocks. No, I mean, like, that riverbed was really impressive. So that added a lot to the. Also, they did a really good job with the sort of light entering your eye idea, where it's like if you walk into the dark, it's really dark. You walk into where it's not dark, and then it blinds you for a sec. I don't know.
I'm pretty sure that's been done.
I'm not saying it hasn't. I'm saying they did a good job of it.
They did good with it.
It wasn't revolutionary.
They did a good job with the fish AI too.
Well, not as good as Mario.
Not as good as Mario.
All right, so
did you guys see the teaser trailer though?
I did.
Yeah.
Did you were you like me and half expecting David Hare to be like, war has changed. It's no longer about nations, ideologies, or ethnicity. It's an endless series of proxy battles, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah. I know, it's Call of Duty Metal Gear.
It's Call of Duty Metal Gear.
Yeah. I think it would be better if, at the end they had Ron Perlman say war never changes. So.
No.
Ooh. Yeah, that's kind of a sore spot. We don't want to talk about Fallout yet, do we?
I don't know. Anyway,
I think it's going to be fun.
It could be cool. It's an interesting idea. Although that trailer kind of gave me this weird sense of like, we're talking about a real world issue that could actually have a very big impact on nations and warfare and atrocities, and there's all this stuff tied up with Blackwater in Iraq, and they've been accused of all kinds of nasty crap. And we're going to make a video game about it. You're going to shoot them. It's going to be fun. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that really did not strike me as super sensitive to reality. I don't know. I might be the only one, but.
You're probably not the only one. Well, I mean, look, here's the other question. Okay, so they're going to prioritize next-gen consoles. But I feel like it's still going to be on 360 and PS3, right?
Oh, absolutely. It has to be. Come on.
It's Call of Duty. I mean, you can't make $1 billion on the next-gen consoles right now. You just can't. I mean, it's not a thing that can happen.
But I feel like they did that pretty deep into the earlier run of Call of Duty games, too, didn't they?
Yeah, I think
Or am I wrong about that?
I think they did. I think they had Call of Duty games on PS2 for quite a while.
Yeah. Well, everybody had Call of Duty, or everybody had games on PS2 for quite a while.
Yeah, that's true. Well, I'm I am not rescinding my desire for Call of Duty to stop, to do something new. But I'm going
I agree.
I'm going to withhold my judgment on this one. It looks like the last Call of Duty that was on PlayStation 2 came out in 2006.
It was Call of Duty 3, right?
Yes, it was.
There you go.
So,
yeah, I thought that might have been it, because Modern Warfare was the real one. So that's what, 2 years into the new console cycle?
Yeah,
Didn't Xbox come out in 2005? Xbox One, I mean, or Xbox 360?
The first Call of Duty on 360 was also Call of Duty 3. So it looks,
wasn't it Call of Duty 2?
No, it was not. Oh yeah, it was.
Right.
Yeah.
Wait, yeah, it was.
I remember there being a demo for Call of
it was.
Duty 2 on the
Yeah.
Xbox 360.
It was, but I didn't mean 360. I meant PlayStation 3. So the first Call of Duty on PlayStation 3 was Call of Duty 3, and so it looks like.
But that's because Xbox had the lead time.
Yeah, they had a year.
So.
But I mean, that's what I'm saying is once it was out on both of the sort of next-gen consoles of the day, then the next Call of Duty game was straight. It didn't have any backwards, older legacy stuff going on.
Yeah, it looks like we're going to get... I would expect to get 2 years out of it. So that would be last year and this year, and then probably 2015's Call of Duty will be straight next-gen.
Yeah, I'd say you're probably right.
Gen.
Current gen. It'll be current gen at that time.
If we say current gen, then it's just confusing.
Oh, I know. Like, what's current?
Yeah.
I don't know. Well, so let's, we'll table Call of Duty for now. We'll talk about it a little more next week, I'm sure, because we're going to have the reveal on Sunday, and probably by the time this podcast goes up or right around there, we may have a few speculatory ideas about what the new Call of Duty might be on the site. So stay tuned for that. I'll tell you something else that happened today that's a little weird. They announced the system requirements for Wolfenstein: The New Order. And right as we stepped into our little podcast brains here, we found out that according to Bethesda, the system requirements are, quote, based on the game being a next-gen experience running at 60 frames per second. So if you want to be able to play Wolfenstein: The New Order on PC as it was intended to be experienced, you're going to need 64-bit Windows 7 or 8, a Core i7 or equivalent AMD processor, which would be an FX 8300 series, 4 gig of RAM, a 50 gig of hard drive space, and a GeForce 460. Now, those are some odd system requirements for me.
I agree.
I know we were talking about it a little bit before we started recording today, and we've been trying to talk with Bethesda about it a little bit, but those don't seem to line up very well. I mean, a GeForce 460 is an old video card. Yeah,
doesn't it sound like way more processor than...
it sounds like
video card?
Way more. Like a ton more. I have a hard time believing that just because it's an i7, it's going to run the game better than like the i5 that I'm running that's clocked all to hell and gone. So, it's a really weird requirement. I don't know maybe what they're going for there, which is why we're trying to get some sort of clarification. But I mean, come on, a GeForce 460, that's like a 4-year-old card.
Yeah.
A 4-year-old card with a high-end current day processor? I don't know. It seems strange. And only 4 gig of RAM. So, I guess what that's telling me is in my system that has an overclocked i5 and two 570s and 16 gigs of system RAM that I won't be able to get 60 frames per second out of Wolfenstein. That's going
to be interesting for sure.
So,
I mean, like you said, we're trying to get more clarification out of Bethesda. We've already reached out to them. They did, I think, confirm the i7, but there are various kinds of i7s, right?
Well, I mean, yeah. So, is it the i7 that you've got in your laptop that's running at 2 gigahertz?
Right.
I don't know. It's weird.
That might be a softer requirement than it sounds like it is, but we're not quite sure just yet. So,
I mean, it just seems odd. I don't know. I don't know why, but it just seems like a really strange requirement. So if we get more on that, we'll definitely probably have something on the site if we hear anything there. But if you get to that point and you're really hard up, there's always those AMD options if you're willing to go that route. I've heard some good things about the FX 8300 series. And they're cheap.
Yeah.
Seriously, I was looking the other day. You can get an FX 8350 that runs at like 4 gigahertz, which I think is an 8-core processor for like $200. Yeah, which is just crazy talk. But I haven't messed with them much, so I can't speak to whether or not they're competing with an i7 on any level. But anyway, couple quick things that we'll mention before we call it a day today. We're going to be starting up a brand new giveaway on the site on Monday. We're teaming up with the Escapists, and we're going to give away 2 copies of Watch Dogs. So you want to make sure and get your entries in for that, because Watch Dogs comes out at the end of May, and if you're selected as one of the winners, we'll send it to you and you want to pay for it.
Oh,
which
man.
is always a bonus. And finally, don't forget that Mitch and James will be on Twitch again on Wednesday. What time is that this week, Mitch?
Our usual Twitch time on Wednesday?
Yeah.
It's 12 Pacific, 3 Eastern.
Yeah, you'll want to tune in for that. What are you guys doing this week?
I don't know yet. We usually figure it out the day before.
It's going to be something. I'm sure to be something that James is not very good at.
Well, actually, this week we kept it balanced. We had a game he was good at, Pain, which is a game that no one else in the world is good at other than him, because he's the only one who likes that game.
Wait, are you talking about the PlayStation Network game where you shoot people out of you shoot David Hasselhoff out of a slingshot?
Yes, that's exactly it.
What?
Yeah,
Sounds
right?
amazing.
What do you mean, what? It is amazing.
Yeah, what? Oh, come on. You guys, I cannot be the only person who has a normal functioning brain who thinks that Pain is a piece of crap.
Oh,
I've never seen it in action.
yeah.
I probably
You should definitely
will.
check it out. It's a hoot. It's just funny. Because you, Phil, all you need to know is this. You can get David Hasselhoff, load him into a slingshot, shoot him across the whatever map you're playing on, and then when he crashes into things, you can shake the controller to build up this thing and make him like jerk his body in random directions. You try to score points by breaking shit.
Nice.
I mean, come on. How is that not fun?
It's fun to watch. It's not so fun to play. And then we did Modern Warfare 3. We played some challenges and competed for the best times in them. And then we played Trials. And,
how'd that go?
Yeah. How'd what?
Is it the new Trials?
Yeah, Trials Fusion.
Oh yeah, how was it?
I'm not a big fan of the multiplayer mode of that game. I like the single player mode a lot better. I feel like you get punished for doing well, because when someone crashes, they'll start and will be able to catch up just as easily as. Sorry, I got a call from James, so I got distracted. But yeah, I'm not a big fan of the multiplayer.
Got it.
Well, you can watch him on Twitch, 12 Pacific, 3 Eastern on Wednesday. Mitch is still working on his new game plus, Dark Souls 2. That's going on at 4 p.m. Pacific. Is that right?
Sorry, what?
Your new game plus on Dark Souls 2 is 4 p.m. Pacific?
Yeah, 4 p.m. Pacific. Sorry, I muted myself and
Pretty
was
much
answering
every day.
James really quick.
Pretty much every day. Yeah, James, see, look, even when he's not here, James is disrupting the podcast. So, you definitely want to check out twitch.tv/gamefront for all of the live stuff that's going on, and the YouTube channel for all of the other fun things that are going on with walkthroughs, James vs. Games, the Minecraft show, and more. So that's at youtube.com/gamefront. Over on the Twitter side, you can follow us on Twitter at GameFront.com. We're currently throwing out some WildStar beta keys on Twitter. So if you don't have one for this weekend yet, follow us and keep an eye out. If you have any questions, comments, snide remarks, or you just want to compliment Mitch on how nice his hair is,
Oh.
You can send an
thank you.
email to tips@gamefront.com. Don't get a big head. You'll never have hair as good as Greg Tito does. Tips@gamefront.com is where you can reach us. We want to thank all you all for listening. Hope you have a great weekend. And just to make sure that you don't forget, I've got senior editor Phil Hornshaw over here in one side of the room.
Have a good one.
And Mitchell Saltzman, our video producer, on the other side.
I'm the one with the great hair.
That's right.
That's true.
Yeah, I wish it was mine. All right, guys. Have a great weekend, and we will see you next week.